Good morning, everyone. This is Christian Duke, and you're watching the Iron Duke Speaks, brought to you courtesy of IronMagLabs.com, your go-to source for all your bodybuilding and fitness supplements. Today is Wednesday, May the 2nd. First and foremost, I want to remind everyone that if you log on to IronMagLabs.com or MuscleGels.com, you can save 15% off with my discount code ID15, IronDuke15, 15% off. Whether you're getting muscle gels, which you can pick up at musclegels.com, or if you're getting Lean Fuel Extreme version 2, which is my personal favorite, over at ironmaglabs.com, if you use the discount code ID15, you'll save 15% off your purchase. This weekend, Mr. Jim Mannion's IFBB Pro League Pittsburgh Pro and NPC Pittsburgh Championships. I will be there, as well as Hector Mendoza. We will be filming for Iron Mag TV. That's right. So Iron Mag TV can be accessed on the web by simply going to ironmag.com. And we're going to get the big interviews, the big photos. We're going to be there amongst the who's who of bodybuilding. I mean, guys, just think about the guest posers alone. And first and foremost, I want to say a very big thank you to Mr. Jim Mannion for giving me a press pass, and also one to Hector, because that's huge. And, you know, the press passes, you know, allow us to do interviews and photos. And again, I really appreciate that. But look at the guest posers list, guys. I mean, just try to wrap your head around just the guest posers list. I mean, you know, it's a great NPC event. It's a great IFBB Pro League event. There's deep lineups, and that alone is a huge draw. But the guest posers, you got 7-time Mr. Olympia, Phil the Gift Heath. You got 5-time Arnold Classic champion and Mr. Olympia, Dexter the Blade Jackson. You got Sean Flexitron Roden, William Bonac, who won the Arnold Classic this year, Ruli Winkler, who's won a ton of titles, Dennis the Big Bad Wolf. You got Nathan Diasha, and oh wait, how can you forget Big Ramy? Like 340 pounds of rock hard muscle, someone that everyone considers to be the next Mr. Olympia. But wait a minute. Last year's second runner-up, William Bonac, and this year's Arnold Classic champion, William Bonac, he might have something to say about that. He might have to say, well, you know, Big Ramy, you might be 400 pounds, but you're not going to be Mr. Olympia. I'm the next Mr. Olympia. So who knows, you know, how that's going to play out. But you basically have the entire body, the highest echelon, the highest tier, the highest grade of bodybuilding talent at this competition, May the 4th and the 5th in Pittsburgh, PA. Again, you don't want to miss that. I'm not going to miss that. So again, you shouldn't miss it either. Now, the subject of this video is actually the subject of an article that I wrote that should be available at this point at ironmagazine.com. And if it's not, it'll be released shortly. And that's the concept of whether or not guys on the East Coast or gals on the East Coast train harder than folks on the West Coast. And I got to be honest with you. I mean, when you look at, you know, natural Mr. Universe Mike O'Hearn, you know, this is a natural bodybuilder, 100% natural, you know, takes creatine, I would imagine, you know, amino acids and protein powder, but 100% natural, wins not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 natural universe. These are drug-tested events, by the way, guys. And I know you guys think, oh, you know, Michael, these are drug-tested. These are rigidly scrutinized, drug-free organizations. They don't screw around. And he was able to win 4 of these things. And, you know, for Mike to go to goals at 4 in the morning, I think is what he does every day to train. And his version of training is power building, which is a combination of powerlifting and bodybuilding. To me, is you know, insane. I mean, you look at the poundages this guy moves, whether he's pulling, whether he's squatting, whether he's benching, it's insane. You know what I mean? And, you know, he's not by himself at the gym. There's other people there at 4 in the morning training hard too. And you look at Tom Platz. Tom Platz lived out west for a long time, and Tom Platz was the original Quadzilla. I know Paul DeMeo really laid claim to that in the 90s, and arguably is the only Quadzilla. But I mean, come on, guys. You know, Tom Platz was an Oklahoma boy, I believe, and then he moved out to, you know, Oklahoma's not on the East Coast, and it's not on any coast. It's in the interior. And then he moved over to Cali, I'm pretty sure, for a few years. I mean, they all lived in Cali for a few years. And So basically it's this concept that, now, Iron Mag TV, we have Chris Sagoon Griffin. Now he's from Boston, and he might, say that they train harder on the East Coast, particularly the Northeast. It's not just the East Coast, see, because when you think of East Coast training, it's kind of like when you think of the West Coast. I mean, nobody's really talking about Seattle, nobody's talking about Washington State or Oregon. They're talking about California. And when people are talking about the East Coast, they're not talking about North Carolina, and they're not talking about Virginia. They're talking about basically everything north of Maryland. And you got to include Maryland because that's where Kevin, the Maryland Muscle Machine, is from. But I guess it goes Maryland on up to Massachusetts. I mean, no offense to Maine or New Hampshire, but you're not really included either. So, I mean, the reality of the matter is, for that stereotype, I'm saying you're not included. I mean, for that stereotype, for that myth and legend, it's all sort of like that northeastern type vibe. Boston, New York City, Baltimore, but really Boston and New York City. I mean, Yankees and Red Sox. You know what I mean? Basically, that's where you've got that mentality. Connecticut is definitely included in that, where Evan Centopani is from. Rhode Island, which really isn't a state, it's like a parking lot, it's so little. But Rhode Island's included. Connecticut, I already said. Well, Connecticut's very noticeable, obviously, because I mentioned it twice. New Jersey. I mean, there's really nothing to do in New Jersey except to squat and lift and all that, So I guess they associate it because, these northeastern states are real cold and real urban, and everybody's kind of like running around, and you got to shovel, several inches, if not even feet of snow, and whenever you have snow, you have slush, and you don't have a lot of sunlight, you don't have a lot to do. I mean, a lot of these guys work, guys and girls work like, crazy union jobs where like they basically break their backs at work. But somehow, they take a scoop or two of pre-workout and they're at the gym squatting 500 pounds, ass to the grass. You know what I mean? So, but you know what? I mean, there's also hard-ass union people working on the West Coast. And also, like, but the thing is that come on, their weather's a lot better. You know what I mean? Like, they really can't complain. I mean, it's like, do I wear a sweater today? Is it 65 or is it 75? Do I wear a long sleeve or a short sleeve? It's like they have beautiful weather. They have palm trees. But life is just as hard, you know what I mean? And the thing is like you look at the Mecca Gold's Gym or the East Coast Mecca Bevs, and honestly, you see some rather insane training people. So I guess the question really is, who trains harder, East Coast or West Coast? I mean, back it up. Now, I know a lot of the freaks seem to be from the East Coast. I mean, you look at Kai Green, the wheels on that guy, I mean, I haven't seen on any guy in a while. You know what I mean? You got Paul DeMeo, who again, with those quads, man, Paul DeMeo, like, put any guy's leg training to shame. Mike Matarazzo's calves, I mean, are like, are the topic of myth and legend. I mean, it's not myth or legend, it's like the real deal, like Chris Cormier, but it's like, I mean, those calves are like, monstrous. There were no implants in those calves. There's no oil in those calves. Not that you can even do that, I don't think, anyways, but those are like just natural, God-given calves that were worked to the point where they look like, I mean, literally, there was like a donkey out there that was like crying in the night, like, where am I? So it's like, honestly, and you see that. I mean, you see that at like the Montanari Brothers gym. You see that, in the gyms in New York. You see that at Bev's. You see that like, there's so many gyms in Boston. I mean, Chris Sagoon Griffin and Ron Harris are over at Bayshore Athletic. I mean, you see some things there. I have some friends that work over at Center City, which is in Brockton. I mean, you want to talk about a tough town. I mean, Brockton is as tough as it gets. Like, Mike Quinn will tell you it's a city of champions. Mighty Mike Quinn from Brockton, Massachusetts, and I know they'll tell you Brockton's a city of champions. It very well is, but it's also the city of hardcore people, because if you're not hardcore in Brockton, I mean, I imagine they take your shoes, you know what I mean? So, honestly, it's a tough town. I mean, we're going to talk, which coast is tougher. I mean, we'd be sitting here all day, but the same thing goes for which coast trains harder. I mean, I think it's, in my article, I basically came to the conclusion that I thought it was a ridiculous point to say that one coast trained harder. You know what I mean? Because you have hardcore people on both sides. But, the running joke is that, people on the West Coast, they don't squat. You know what I mean? That they use Smith machines, and that, they're big into aerobics and yoga and wheatgrass drinks, and basically making them out to be like, the people that just go out there to, like, appear on movies and wind up appearing as extras on commercials and don't really work. and just kind of lay around, kind of like in Pumping Iron. But you have to understand, Pumping Iron, they were laying around the beach for the movie. Like, all of those guys worked jobs, you know what I mean? Frank Zane was a teacher. Arnold and Franco worked construction. You know what I mean? Mike Katz was a teacher also, I believe. I mean, they all worked. I mean, whether they worked industrial jobs, they worked labor jobs, they worked, you know, professional jobs, whatever, they all worked. You know, they weren't just like sitting around. Now, there were people, you know, like Rick Drazen back in the day, who was very fortunate to get a lot of acting roles. And Rick Drazen, if you don't know who that is, come on, guys, wake up. You know, wrestling superstar, bodybuilding superstar, Arnold's training partner, you know, on tons of commercials and movies. Everybody knows who Rick is. He gets mobbed, honestly. If you don't know who he is, the thing is, you know, a lot of people don't know who people are because they don't really, like, explore. You know, there's a whole world at your fingertips. I mean, that's something that was said a lot when the internet came out, and now kids are like, whatever. But there is. You can learn about anything on the internet. It's just a, you know, keystroke away or whatever, you know. And Rick Drazen, you know, honestly was a heavy hitter back in the day. He still is. He's got the wildly successful Rick's Corner and periodically does videos for us at Iron Mag TV. I mean, he's got about 6 or 7 videos at Iron Mag TV. Iron Mag TV, ironmag.com. So, yeah, I mean, he was lucky, you know, he was able, but he was doing wrestling. See, he was doing commercials, but he was also doing wrestling, and wrestling is by no means a cookie-cutter job. It's by no means an easy payday. I mean, you're getting beat the hell up and expected to recover the next day for the next match and go to the next city and the next state, and it's a pretty brutal schedule. So even Rick, I mean, Rick probably had it worse than the other guys that were actually working the regular jobs. So, honestly, no, nobody went out there and had a, you know, an easy payday. You know what I mean? And you talk to any top-tier bodybuilder, it's got to do the photo shoots and the seminars and the guest posings and the in-store appearances. And if you think they're going to tell you that it's a cakewalk, you're out of your mind. So, and I don't know where this idea of not squat, because I see Mike O'Hearn squat all the time. You know what I mean? Robbie Robinson squats, you know, Arnold squats. I mean, all the people out west squat. Franco Columbo, your 2-time Mr. Olympia. I mean, the guy almost had to sit out in Olympia because he was carrying a refrigerator on his back, for Christ's sakes. I mean, come on, guys. It's ridiculous. But again, if you want to make the case that the East Coast or the Northeast or Florida's an exception to that whole thing. You know how I said it goes from Baltimore to like Boston? Well, Florida gets included because of the snowbirds, because they have brought that Northeast cold ass, grimy, gritty, snowy, you know, training methodology to South Florida with them. Like, you know, you got Mike O'Hearn, you got Mike Quinn, who lives down there in Palm Beach, and you know, he might live in Palm Beach the next 150 years, but guess what? He's still got Boston in the heart. So he's brought that Boston work ethic, that Boston mentality, that Brockton mentality, I should say, of hardcore training and discipline and eating right to South Florida. And so by proxy, South Florida gets included in that Northeast sort of a mythic hardcore bodybuilding training thing. I mean, it's like, if you really buy into that whole Northeast thing, it basically makes Kuwait look like LA Fitness or something, you know what I mean?